Be Attentive, Series 17. Volume 34, June 14th, 1936. Our love, our eternal wisdom, has established all the graces that we must give to the creature, the degrees of sanctity that she must acquire, the beauty with which we must impearl her, the love with which she must love us, and the very acts that she must do. Where our Fiat reigns, everything is realized. The divine order is in full vigor. Not one comma is moved. Our operation is in full harmony with the works of the creature. And oh, how we delight ourselves! And when we have given her our last love in time, and she will have completed our last act of divine will in her mortal life, our love will give her the flight into the celestial fatherland, and our will receive her into heaven as triumph of its operating and conquering will, that with so much love conquered on earth. In fact, her last act will be the outpouring that she will make in heaven, in order to begin in our felicitating will that will have no end. On the other hand, where our volition does not reign, the divine order does not exist. How many of our works broken and without effect? How many divine voids, and filled perhaps with passions, with sins? There is no beauty, but deformity as to arouse pity. Therefore be attentive, and make it that our volition reigns and lives in you. Volume 34, January 4th, 1937. Besides this, everything is in if this wanted act of my Fiat becomes recognized, and then it makes of her unheard-of prodigies of sanctity and of beauty that will form the most beautiful ornaments of the celestial fatherland, and the most refulgent lives that resemble their Creator, because our will does not know how to make beings that do not resemble us. The first thing that it puts forth is our likeness, because it wants to find itself in the operating act that it develops in the creature. Otherwise it would say, "She does not resemble me, and therefore she does not belong to me." If, then, it is not recognized and not loved, then she forms the sorrow of my volition. Although it runs in every act of the creature, and if it were not to run, it would take away life. So, in its sorrow, it feels its divine life rejected, the sanctity that it once developed hindered, the seas of grace that must inundate her, the beauty that must cover her, enclosed in its wanted act. Therefore my will can say, "There is no sorrow similar to my sorrow." More so because there is no good that it did not want to give to her. There is no act of hers that I have not placed there of mine. So, my daughter, be attentive. Think that every act of yours is dependent on a divine will that envelops it, forms it, and gives it life. And because it loves you, it wants that you know the life that it gives you, and this as confirmation of its acts in you. Therefore content yourself with dying, rather than hindering this wanted, even from the beginning of your existence, act of my will. How beautiful it is to be able to say, "I am will of God," because it has done everything in me. It has created me. It has formed me. And it will carry me in its arms of light into the celestial regions has victory and triumph of the omnipotent Fiat and of his love. Volume 34, January 24th, 1937. There is no prayer, or even natural acts that she does, that it does not enclose the value of my acts. In fact, in the one who lives in my divine will, I feel myself repeat my life, and it doubles the value in order to purchase my divine will for the benefit of the human generations. One can say that there is a contest between me and her for who wants to give more, in order to make that my will would be possessed again by the human family. But this is not yet everything. If it does not do complete works, it is not content. To the value of the creation and redemption that it has enclosed in the soul, there it adds with an incredible love. There it encloses the celestial fatherland, and makes resound its glory, its joys, the eternal beatitudes, as seal and confirmation of the creative and redemptive work that it has formed in her. After this, in order to be more secure, it creates there its heartbeat, its breath. It makes its life, its light, circulate more than blood, and as triumphant, it gives her a new name, calling her my Fiat. This name is the most beautiful name that will make all of heaven smile, and all of hell tremble. Name that I cannot give except to the one who lives in my volition, and lets me do in her what I want. My daughter, what can my omnipotent Fiat not do and give? It arrives at so much that it gives her rights over its own power, over its love, over its justice. It incorporates the will of the creature with itself, and it tells her, "Be attentive. I do not want anything else from you than that you do what I do. Therefore it is necessary that you are always together with me, and I with you." Volume 34, February 26, 1937. When we find the creature who lends herself and denies us nothing, we do not look at her littleness, but we look rather to what we know and can do, because we can do everything. And making a display of our love and of all our divine being, we invest the creature and let ourselves be invested. And we do great things worthy of us, but with such magnanimity that everyone remains surprised and amazed. It is enough to tell you that every additional act that she does in my will, as if we were to have need of the creature, we give so much that we increase greater bonds of union, of love, on both parts, and we arrive at giving new rights to her over our divine being, and to us over her. So great is this operating act of our Fiat in her, that the centuries are not enough to say what happens in her. Neither the angels nor the saints can tell all the good that it contains. Only your Jesus can tell you all the good that is formed in this act, because I, being the operator, I know how to say what I do, and the great value that I placed within there. Therefore be attentive. Greater contentment, love, and glory you cannot give me than lending me your little acts, your little love, in order to let my will descend into them, so as to let my will operate. Its love is so much that it feels the need of having its field of action in the little acts of the creature. Volume 34, March 14, 1937. My will is like a tender mother who feels in herself the long generation of her lives that she wants to put forth to the light in order to form the long generation of her children who would form her kingdom. And therefore it goes, finding the one who lends her axe to it. But do you know why it goes to find the axe of the creature? Having to descend into the depth of the human acts in order to form its life, it wants to make its way in their midst in order to give its own life to the creatures. More so because life does not form itself on the outside of people, but always within. Otherwise the necessary things, the vital humors, in order to form a life, would be lacking. In the same way, my will cannot form its life from heaven, nor outside of the creature, but it must descend within them, and the human will must cede the place to the divine. It must be concurring, because we do not want forced things. And when we have found her, who can tell you what we do, the graces that we pour, the good that we want for her? It is not dealing with works, but our life that we must grow. So we do not spare anything, and only in heaven will what we have done be known. Therefore be attentive, and always live under the reign of my volition, so that investing all your acts, it animates them with its life, and in this way you will give me as many children for however many acts you will do. Volume 34, March 22nd, 1937. My divine will would not tolerate that the one who lives in it would not give it the exchange of love for everything and everyone. My divine fiat finds everything that it wants in the love of the creature. It finds her life as its. It finds the glory that is due it. It finds the appreciation, the esteem that is owed to it. It finds the true filial trust in order to be able to give her everything. In fact, love is generative, such that it generates all the divine goods. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. You love and love in my will, and you will find so much love that you will be able to love everyone and love for everyone, he who loves you so much. After this, for the miserable circumstances of my life, that it is not necessary to say on paper, better that they will be known in heaven, I felt myself oppressed, annoyed, and almost disturbed, without my usual peace and full abandonment in the divine fiat. And my sweet Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My daughter, what are you doing? Do you not know that the soul without the fullness of my will, and the full abandonment in it, is like the earth without water, like the plants without the sun, like the body without the soul? And the poor creature, like earth without water, that is not capable of producing a blade of grass, so she dies of thirst, and is incapable of doing one little good. She burns with thirst, and there is no one who quenches it. And lacking the sun of my fiat, she will die in the darkness that will darken her eyes, and she will not see the good so as to know it in order to do it. And she will lack the heat in order to mature the same good. And then, without my will, she will feel herself without divine life. And as the body without the soul putrefies and therefore is buried, so without the life of my volition, the passions putrefy her, and they bury her in sins. In addition to this, the oppressions, the disturbances, stop the flight in my will. She loses speed and cannot follow all its works anymore. And so if she has not followed all our works, I cannot bring her to take rest in the bosom of our divinity. Therefore, be attentive. Place the oppressions, the annoyances, what disturbs you, into the hands of your Jesus, and I will place them in the light and heat of my Fiat, so that they remain burned. And you, feeling yourself free, you will more quickly follow the flight in my volition. Nor do I want you worried. I will think of everything. My daughter, stay in peace. Otherwise I will not be able to develop and grow the life of my will in you as I want. And this will be the greatest sorrow for me. And I will not feel myself free to breathe, to palpitate. I will feel hindered in continuing my life in you. Volume 34, March 26, 1937. Now these souls who live in my will are disposed to receiving all the sufferings of my humanity, because it being impossible for me to suffer, because I am glorious in heaven, my will with its omnipotent breath creates the sufferings, the sorrows, and forms there my living humanity that substitutes for me in everything. And they are the new saviors, who give their life in order to save the entire world. In fact, from heaven I look at the earth, and I find as many Jesuses, who, taken by the same folly of my love, give their life at the cost of sufferings and of death, in order to tell me, I am your faithful copy. The sufferings make me smile because I enclose souls. And I, oh, how I love them! I do not feel alone any more. I feel happy, victorious, because having company and developing the same life, in suffering the same sufferings, in wanting what I want, is my greatest happiness and my paradise on earth. See, therefore, how many great, portentous things my divine will knows how to do, provided they live in it. It forms my same living humanity, and procures for me the same joys of my celestial fatherland. Therefore take to heart to always live in my will. Do not think of anything else, because if you do this, I feel my love broken in you. And if you knew how much it costs me to not be loved for even one moment, in fact, in that moment I remain alone. You break the happiness with me, and in my delirium of love, I keep repeating, how is it? I always love her, and she, no. Therefore be attentive, because I do not want to ever remain alone. Volume 34, April 25th, 1937. My daughter, how beautiful my will is! No one can boast of loving the creature as it loves her. So much is its love, that it wants to do everything for her. It does not want to entrust her to anyone. With its fiat, it creates her, it raises her, it nourishes her. It carries her always in its arms of light. It acts as teacher for her, teaching her the most sacred sciences. It reveals to her the most mysterious and hidden secrets of our Supreme Being. It makes her aware of our love, of the flames that burn us, in order to let her burn together with us in every act that she does. It never leaves her alone. It runs in order to place its life there. In fact, every act is animated by its divine life, and they possess the virtue of being able to produce divine life. And my will takes these lives from within the act of the creature in order to give divine life, life of grace, life of light, life of sanctity to other creatures, and life of glory to the whole celestial court. My will is the true all-doer. It wants to give itself to everyone by means of the one who lives in its volition. And when it has formed the fullness of its masterpiece, it carries her to heaven as triumph and victory of its power and divine art that it knows how to and can do in the creature, provided she lends herself to living with it and lets it carry her in its arms. Therefore be attentive, and let a volition so holy that loves you so much and wants to be loved in return work. Volume 34, May 6, 1937. You think of making everything redound to my glory, and of how to make me be loved. My will shall give you the flight in order to make you bring my blood, my wounds, my kisses, my paternal tendernesses to my children and to your brothers. Therefore do not marvel. This is truly the divine operation, to keep its works in the act of repeating them continuously, in order to give them so as to make of them a gift to the creatures. Each one can say, everything is mine, even God himself is mine. And oh, how we enjoy in seeing them gifted with our works, possessors of their Creator. They are the excesses of our love, that in order to be loved, we want to make touched how much we love them and the gifts that we want to give them. Then for the one who lives in our volition, if we do not make a gift of everything to them, we feel as if we would defraud the creature, and this we do not know how to do. Therefore be attentive. Let your soul be embalmed by our divine peace, because we do not know what disturbance is, and all things will bring you the smile, the sweetness, the love of your Creator. Volume 34, May 23, 1937. The virtue of order is admirable. She binds herself with everyone. She gives herself to everyone. And with its peaceful and dominating waves, she takes and makes hers the strength of creation, that of the saints who are in heaven. The very divine strength, she makes it hers. Her ordered and peaceful ways are so penetrating and insinuating that everyone lets her do it, more so because she has given herself to everyone. She has not kept anything for herself. It is just that everyone gives themselves to her. Therefore she feels in herself the peace, the joy, the happiness of the celestial sojourn. Everyone feels themselves united, bound with inseparable union, because what unites my will is not subject to separation. So the true order brings the union, the accord with everyone, and she has a place in everyone, and everyone will find a little place in her, because she will love with that same love with which their Creator himself loves them. These are prodigies that my omnipotent Fiat knows how to do where it reigns. It does not know how to do anything other than works that resemble it, and they generate in the soul the effects that form its life itself, so much so that no one will be able to object to anything. And I must be able to say, no one touches her but me. Nor will they be able to touch her, because it is my will. And if someone would dare to, I will know how to defend myself. My love will convert for them into fire of justice, and I will humiliate them even to dust. Therefore be attentive, that everything is order and peace in you. If you notice something to the contrary, place yourself on guard and pray to me. Press me, that with my dominion I knock down everything that is not order and perennial peace. Volume 34, May 28, 1937. My beloved daughter, you must know that I am the bearer of Jesus. This was a gift that the Supreme Being entrusted to me. And when he was certain that I had grace, love, power, and the divine will itself, in order to keep him guarded, defended, and loved, then he consigned the gift to me, that is the eternal Word, who incarnated himself in my womb, telling me, "Our daughter, we make you the greatest gift of the life of the Sun God, such that you are mistress of him. And you give him to whomever you want. However, know him, keep him defended, never leave him alone with whomever you give him to, in order to fill in if they do not love him, in order to make reparation to him if they offend him. You will act in a way that nothing is lacking to the decency, to the sanctity, to the purity that befits him. Be attentive. He is the greatest gift that we make you. And we give you the power of bilocating him however many times you want, so that the one who wants him can receive this great gift and possess him. Volume 34, July 4th, 1937. My blessed daughter, if you knew how I enjoy, and how my love pours itself out in manifesting to you our celestial mysteries, in what state of love our Supreme Being, our adorable will, is found, in order to give me enjoyment, you would be attentive to let me say in what way we find ourselves in the midst of creatures, and the great good that we can do them. Now you know it, that our immensity envelops everything. Our power and strength is so much that we carry everything and every one in our arms as if they were a little feather. All this is natural for our being, 3 times holy, so much so that if we would want to lessen ourselves, we cannot do it. Our immensity and power flow in every fiber of the heart, in all the breaths, in the rapidity of the blood that flows in the veins, in the swiftness of the thought. We are actors and spectators, and aware of everything. But this is nothing. They are nothing other than the qualities of our Supreme Being. Volume 34, July 12, 1937. Such is the soul created by God, more than a very clear font, in which more than a very clear font God could look at himself in her, and she in God. Now, the reflections, the oppressions, the doubts, fears, and so forth, are as so much rubble cast into the depth of her soul. And God, looking at himself in her, does not see himself entirely, but as divided into so many parts. Therefore the strength, the divine joy, the sanctity, the unity of peace is divided. This will impede her from knowing who God is, how much He loves her, and what He wants from her. And for her, wanting to look at herself in God, these rubbles will impede her step, making her limp in walking, impeding her flight in order to look at herself in He who has created her, while they seem things of nothing. And yet, in this is formed the knowledge of God in the creature, the union, the sanctity, the looking of God in the creature, and she in God. But not if the soul is disturbed by these rubbles, that can be called trifles of the soul, that lacking the solidity and substance of true love, are always muddying, and God cannot mirror Himself in her in order to form His beautiful image. Therefore, be attentive, and always seek my will. You have reached the end of the Be Attentive series, Volume 34. Fiat.